Good evening, guys, and happy Tuesday to all of your sunshiny faces. So I think I mentioned to you guys in yesterday's vlog that Matthew is home for summer vacation, and so yesterday he didn't really end up doing a whole ton. He sort of like cleaned up the room a little bit yesterday, and then today he ended up going back to his fraternity and went and picked up all of his stuff that he needed, like mainly clothes and things like that, from school, and ended up bringing it all back here so that he has it over the 3 or so months of summer. And then ended up they've been rearranging their entire room most of the afternoon, which they started late, which is like sort of unfortunate because they really weren't able to finish yet before Jack ended up having to go to bed. So yesterday we all ended up sort of like going through and we're like, okay, what sort of makes the most sense, like rearranging some of this stuff, like what can we put where and that will, like I said, make the most sense and work the best and all that kind of stuff. And so we ended up, like I said, doing that yesterday, and then today we ended up sort of like, I went up there when they were like maybe halfway through with that and was like, okay, yeah, some of this stuff that they had in certain places were not working. Like it should have been maybe in a different spot from where it actually was. And like I said, like there's stuff needed to actually be moved around sort of again. Like Matthew wanted his bed like in one spot, like that's what we were thinking was going to work, but then there really wasn't enough room, and so we ended up spinning some things around and it ended up, it seems like it's going to work, but we still don't have all the stuff moved because like I said, Jack needs to go to bed now. So I was sort of just up there to like supervise and be like, oh yeah, all this stuff looks pretty good, you guys got all that moved around and everything. So now they have got pretty much most of that stuff set up for how it will most likely end up working through most of summer, because Matthew didn't like that he didn't really have like sort of like his own space sort of, and like the way stuff was, and I guess it just sort of didn't fit because like his desk was right behind the door, so whenever he opened it, people ended up like hitting him with like the chair, you know, like the door on the back of his chair and stuff like that. So yeah, all of that ended up getting all, like I said, sort of situated and everything. But we ended up, I didn't end up getting to a whole ton today. Actually, I got totally distracted like today a ton. It was like the things that I was trying to get done, I didn't, like I ended up, it took me like, I didn't even have my normal like morning, like finish my coffee and like breakfast and stuff like that. It was just sort of like everything was all over the place today. And then on top of that too, me and my mom ended up talking for a while, like having just like a really long conversation today too. And we're just talking about like reminiscing sort of like about family and stuff like that. Like, you know, like some sort of like, not family history stuff, but like, you know, back when my mom was little, like, you know, that whole kind of thing and stuff like that. And, you know, like, oh, like, you know, again, family stuff and all that kind of thing. And so we were, like I said, talking about that for like a really, like probably almost 3 hours or something close to there, which I totally don't mind because I love to hear stories. Like, you know, again, it was like, oh, my great grandparents and my grandma and, you know, like all kinds of other things and stuff like that, you know, and like being like, oh, we should ask, you know, like family questions about this kind of stuff and things like that too. Like, you know, because my mom brought up some type of question too. She was like, I wonder if like, you know, my grandparents, you know, were like this or that or something like that, like, you know, the side of them that maybe she didn't get to see, or like when they were, you know, like younger, because like my great grandma had a stroke, I think, when my mom was like young, and so that was like her grandma, and so she doesn't really know like what she was entirely like a whole lot when she was like more like, you know, like a parent's age, sort of stuff like that, like, you know, like parenting age, like when her kids were little, you know, like my grandma and aunt. And so, you know, she was like, I really want to ask, you know, like my aunt, you know, well, like what she was like and that kind of stuff, because she's really like the only one, you know, my grandma's not around anymore, my great grandma isn't around anymore, you know, my aunt's really the last one sort of like left that would be able to, you know, like say like, oh, you know, like this was what she was like, and, you know, she used to do this kind of stuff, or, you know, like this was how she handled things, like, you know, a little bit more like what was her personality before she ended up having her stroke. And looking at it too, so her mom, my great grandma's mom, ended up having a stroke. My great grandma had a stroke and my grandma had a stroke. So I don't know that that's necessarily like a genetic thing or anything like that, but that's just something now that I noticed that is very, like I said, I didn't notice that as I was just saying this actually right now, and I'm thinking about it. You know, like I said, something I didn't pick up on like recently, but yeah, anyway, so there was, like I said, my mom has, like, you know, some questions that like she wants to know before, like, you know, and family questions, I guess, sort of just like, you know, what was this person like, and then even to like asking my aunt what was my great grandparents like, you know, her grandparents, what were they like. You know, like my mom had heard some stories like that my grandma used to tell her, and, you know, stuff like that, but like my grandma was younger, so she doesn't, you know, like there might be things that my aunt could actually tell my mom and stuff like that that my grandma didn't know, or, you know, like maybe wasn't aware of at the time because she was so much younger. Like she I think had passed away, my grandma's grandma had passed away. My grandma was still pretty young, because apparently the story was my grandma was just like absolutely devastated when one of her two grandmas ended up actually passing away. Like she was insanely close with her, like it was just something that was really, really hard for her, and so, like, I don't know, she was like beside herself when she ended up, like I said, passing away. But again, because my grandma was so little, there might be things that my aunt could actually tell us about her that maybe my grandma either didn't know or never, you know, like never ended up telling my mom or something like that. So yeah, I think that that's interesting. And like, again, stories and certain things and stuff like that, to like still retain that information, because, you know, like you don't, you know, at some point it's going to get lost, like where there's nobody around anymore that was alive when like another person was, to have been able to tell you like stories about them or anything like that. So it's like you might have some actual physical history information about them, like, oh, their date of birth, and, you know, where they're buried, or, you know, like when, you know, during a census maybe where they were working or something like that. But to actually have information of like family lore, sort of, I guess, is, you know, and family stories, you know, that kind of stuff is, I think, very important as well. And so my mom was talking about that recently, about she was actually going to try and see if my aunt was home today to maybe even get together with her, but then she wasn't able to get a hold of her, so she was like, well, we just ended up then talking about it for a really long time. So that's what we were talking about. But I do think that that is something that's very important, especially for me, is like, you know, talking about, you know, and like learning about, you know, like family and stuff like that, and certain people, and, you know, that kind of stuff. Like I said, I did not end up getting to really a lot of stuff that I wanted to. I did get to a lot of dishes and laundry today, but as far as editing and uploading today too, I didn't end up getting to that, because then my dad was also, things got sort of out of whack a little bit, because my dad ended up having to stay at work late to try and finish something that I guess they still weren't able to finish, but he didn't get home until like maybe around like 6 or 7 o'clock or something like that, and we were gonna grill tonight. And so, because my dad was actually, I asked him if he could get hamburger buns, and then I defrosted hamburger patties, and he ended up not, like I said, getting home on time. Was well after dinner time, so we ended up actually getting Jimmy John's, but Matthew ended up having to go and pick his stuff up, so we couldn't even go out and like get the hamburger buns, or go pick something else up or whatever to eat, so we had to get something delivered. And so yeah, there was a whole sort of thing with that. But then, like, once I was done eating, that was sort of around the time I ended up going upstairs to go and see what Matthew and Jack were up to up there. So like everything today, I just felt totally out of like my normal like schedule, like try and get things done, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. I just was not very productive. On top of that, guys, it is not that cold. It is like okay outside. It's pretty chilly. It sort of feels like cold and damp a little bit outside, even though it really wasn't raining at all today. Tomorrow's supposed to be a little bit warmer, like 63 is a high, but I was freezing cold today, like freezing cold. And when I finally went upstairs, actually, in Matthew and Jack's room, while I was helping them sort of, like I said, get stuff moved and organized, all that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so nice and warm up here because it's the second floor, so all the heat's rising up there, and it was so warm. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice up here. I actually had another jacket on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can take this off, like I'm not that cold up here anymore. But then I came back downstairs and it's like freezing cold again. And like the thing is that like the furnace has been going, but it hasn't really needed to that much because it's not that much colder, like, you know, in the house really than it even is outside. It just feels way colder. So I've been, like I said, freezing cold all day today and just very uncomfortable. But after this week, like I said, it's finally supposed to get warmer, like 70s consistently, which is totally fine. I don't mind that. It's not really like I want to have the windows open or anything, but it's at least warmer and the house will be, you know, like I said, heated up and everything. But like it feels like almost like wintry in the house. Like I said, it's really weird. Like it almost, weirdly enough, feels colder in the house than it did outside at points today too. And like I said, like having the furnace, like the furnace is going right now, but I don't know, it's like not cold enough really either to like need to be like going that much. But so it's not like heating up really well. Like right now it actually feels colder, like, but it almost feels like normally during the day it's warmer, but it actually feels like the same temperature right now as it did last night. And I actually think the furnace is going more right now than it was during the day because it didn't need to, because it wasn't that cold, but it still felt cold. So yeah, anyways though, I think we are going to take a shower and get to bed. You want to go to bed, take a shower, and then go to bed? You want, oh, you want to do that? Do you want to do that too, Beep? Where is Bliss going? Oh, you're getting upset because she's going upstairs and you're not going upstairs while done listening to her? And to take a shower, go to bed? Anyways, guys, I will see you all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.